Hi.
Can I ask you 15 questions?
Sure, let's go for it.
Let's see. You made 100k euros from a clothes rental business. You started at university in Australia. And then you just walk away from it. What happened?
Getting right into it. I love it. Starting the first question with a bang. What happened is that I changed a lot as a person from the 16-year-old that I was when I first started renting out clothes, having that as a business, even though I didn't really understand that it was a business when I was 16, to 4 years later, I changed a lot as a person. I valued things really differently. For example, the whole reason that I started renting clothes is because I myself as a customer had the same need and pain that the other girls renting outfits.
So I have one question that is also a question that I really want to ask you personally. That you told me that being an entrepreneur is also an internal journey of getting to know yourself deeply. Can you explain this to me?
Yes. How long do you have? Entrepreneurship and I think creation in any way that is really challenging actually. And you come across a lot of these barriers. A lot of the time they're not even external barriers. First you have to break through the internal dialogue stories that we create for ourselves that can be barriers, like some of the ones I mentioned before around like, oh, but I'm not going to start this idea because it wouldn't be profitable enough, or I can't be doing that at my age because no one else is doing this, whatever these stories that we create for ourselves are. To me, the way I view it, others are going to have different definitions, but to me it's just about creation. In my view of the world, and this comes a lot from my interest in psychology, entrepreneurship is letting whatever the universe or whoever is higher up than us up here, letting what like the creations that they send through us actually allowing ourselves to manifest that into the world. And sometimes that manifests as artwork, sometimes that manifests as a business. Maybe it's something completely different. Maybe it's a movie, maybe it's a book. But for me, entrepreneurship is all about creation. And I think that also comes a lot from the family that I grew up in. My mum is an artist and my dad's, an entrepreneur and in the business world. So,
which book must inspire you?
Really interesting that you asked that now, because I'm in the middle of a book about this very idea of creation and how do we allow authentic creation to run through us without all of our blocks, all of our internal stories, fears most of the time, stopping us from like letting that creation, that business enter the world. And it's called The Artist's Way. Maybe some people watching this, maybe you and Ash, you've heard of the book before, because it's quite like, I think it's been around since the 90s or something like this. The basic premise is that everyone is creative, whether you consider yourself to be a creative person or not. But some people just are more in touch with that creativity. And this book is a very practical and action-oriented way to help you get in touch with your own inner creativity in a more intimate way. And it sort of runs as like a course, like you're meant to read a chapter each week, and you have tasks and like homework each week. One of which, this is a very practical thing that I would recommend every single person, whether you want to be an entrepreneur or not, to do actually, is something called morning pages. And the idea is that every single morning you write 3 pages of your internal dialogue. Some people call this journaling, but personally, I actually think that not using that title really helped me to like let go of the expectations that I had around what journaling should look like. The whole concept of morning pages and why it links to creativity is that you're meant to just get out all of this internal dialogue stuff. Like most of the time what you write is gonna be really negative. It's gonna be really boring of like, oh yeah, I need to do a load of washing, or all of these things that are on our minds all the time. And the idea is that by writing your 3 pages each morning, you sort of get rid of that layer of like mud that's sort of sitting on the top of your consciousness, let's say, to put it that way. And by actually addressing all those things that are like on our mind of like things on our to-do list, what we have to do that day, how we felt about the thing that person said to us yesterday, all of these little things, if we actually address that in our morning pages, it means that, yeah, you can get rid of this layer of like mud or muck on top of the good shit, which is underneath. And that stuff, the more that we can spend time in like, that deeper layer of consciousness, the more that you can connect with your intuition and allow those creations, businesses to, run through you and to come in contact with them a little bit more. So morning pages is something that I've been doing since the last 3 months since reading this book. And now it feels like if I forget to do it one morning that I've forgotten to brush my teeth. Like it feels so essential to just operating day to day. So I would really recommend that practice for anyone.
First time I hear this advice.
Would highly recommend.
So you had a lot of experiences, from building the clothes rental business, working at a startup in Paris, to building a community here in Lisbon. What mindset did you need to develop to be an entrepreneur? Let's say the key traits you would recommend someone.
The first thing I would say is that all the experiences that you just mentioned and some of the that you didn't mention as well, not all of them are entrepreneurship. Like I've also worked jobs as well. And I think the mindset behind all of the different things that I've tried and the reason why they're all quite different is that I was really just, and still am, trying to figure out like what is meant for me. And I mean, it's the journey that everyone is on, right? Like whether you're 24 or 64. And some of the things that I've learnt about mindset in all of the different careers that I've tried is that whatever you need to be able to listen to yourself and the inner knowing that you have about the type of career that will light you on fire in the best way is going to be the thing that you are most successful at, because we spend at least 5 days of the week working. Like that's so much of our time. And most of us do that until we're in our 60s. Like that is such a big portion and pillar in our lives just by the amount of time that we spend doing it. So sure, you can go down the route and pick the career and the job that externally people around you, whether it's your parents, whether it's your peers, the people at your university, your teachers, say that you should do. But at the end of the day, they're not the ones that are spending 5 days of the week for, a really 50 years, maybe 40 years of their lives doing that. So I've tried going down the path of listening to what people around me told me I should do. And I can tell you that it didn't feel very sustainable for me. It works and it feels validating and good, but for a short period of time until you start to get, for me anyway, this feeling of being actually really quite empty because I wasn't working in a role that was aligned with my natural skills and just who I am as a person. So at the same time, I needed to have those experiences to realize, okay, who am I as a person then? I'm deeply sensitive, I'm deeply creative, I love connecting with people and working, for example, in my last role, which was as a customer success person in a fintech startup. It doesn't align with those things that I just described. But at the time, I convinced myself that it did, like it's like, oh, customer success, like that's working with people, like that will be good for me. But at the end of the day, what I was actually trying to do was fit myself into a box that felt like, okay, that's a well-respected job within the community that I came from, which is like going to a business school. So therefore working in tech is good, especially fintech. Like add the word finance on it and it feels even more like validating or, respected when you tell people that you're working in a fintech company, depending on which circle you're in. But yeah, I guess what I've learned from all those different experiences is that the more sustainable job options are going to be the ones that you truly feel like they ignite your soul and something within you. And a lot of the time that's actually not really going to be accepted, I think, for a lot of us by like the people around us. So you make your choice, and you get it wrong a lot of the time too. But that's just my perspective.
This remembers me a quote that I saw. Some people have a career, others a job, and others a calling. Do you think is that easy to find a calling?
it's so hard, and that's why we need like support and resources to help us. I think what it is unlearning the ideas of success that we thought we believed or that we grew up with, unlearning who we think we are as people, identity, what sort of jobs we thought we would work. I think, yeah, most of the journey to finding your calling is not about learning, but it's actually about unlearning.
I'm curious to know, regarding failure, how do you deal with it?
Such a good question, such an important question, because life is full of failures, whether you're an entrepreneur or not. However, choosing the path of entrepreneurship, you are likely to experience much more failure than choosing to work for a company. Generally speaking, it's a big generalization, but it's what I've experienced. And I find failure really difficult. Honestly, it's really difficult. For example, something that we were talking about, Inesh, before we started recording is we both lived in Paris, and living in a city like Paris as an expat, as a foreigner, especially when you're young and trying to find a job there especially, was a really difficult experience for me. And I felt like I failed at that experience because I had this expectation of how long it would take me to get a job, the quality and like level of prestige that job might be. And that was not at all the case. Like, it took me months and months and months to find a job in Paris. And to me, that felt like a failure because I, at the time, didn't realize it, but a lot of my sense of self-worth was really based in my ability to succeed in this foreign adventure that I'd taken on. Like, I decided to move to Paris by myself, and I didn't realize it, but yeah, I was placing a lot of my own self-worth in will I succeed at making the new life by myself at 21 in a new country, getting a job, like learning the language well, having good relationships, all of getting an apartment, all this stuff. And I think that that's because most of us grow up with the idea that you outsource your self-esteem to things outside of you. And again, it's an unlearning process that I'm still going through as well, to learn how to actually insource that sense of self-esteem instead. And I think that once you get there, you deal with failures a lot better because you can fail. Like, I could fail at getting the job I think I wanted, or I could have a potential client say no to me, or fail in any other way. And it's still going to be difficult, but it's not going to impact my sense of how valuable I think I am as a person. And that's a very subtle, but very, very, very important difference in my opinion. And I'm really still learning how to deal with that.
This is related to my next question. That is, how do you find motivation? What is your biggest motivation to work every day?
Yeah. When I saw this question, I actually felt like it's a difficult one to answer because I have come to learn that motivation doesn't count for shit. Like, it counts for like 2 days. I can't swear.
No, it's fine.
It's good. After that, it runs out, and what are you going to do then? And I've experienced that before. I think for a long time, and still some days now, I was relying on motivation to get stuff done. But discipline is actually what gets stuff done. And I think that it's maybe, discipline is hard, always, but it's easier when you can find something that reminds you or gives you a sense of connection to your why. Why am I doing this? Why am I putting myself through a challenging thing? Actually, I'll have to say that my partner, Elliot, is someone who I really admire and look up to when it comes to discipline. He comes from like a sort of elite sporting background, and I think that sport is a really, really good way to learn discipline. And it's also something that has helped me teach me discipline. Like, I trained for my first marathon last year, and there are so many times where, I did not want to go running because it was raining, or like it's just really uncomfortable. Like, you're putting yourself through through momentary, like temporary pain. And as humans, we're biologically wired to resist pain. Like that's really normal. We don't want to suffer. So we need to find something that, like our prefrontal cortex, the more advanced part of our brain, can connect with, like a purpose, a reason, maybe make it visual. Like, you know, people have vision boards. Maybe you print out a photo of whatever, something that really resonates with you of like, why am I going through this pain right now? And for me, it was so that I can enjoy the marathon experience, if we're going to use that example, and actually be present instead of like, it was either like, okay, I'm going to feel the pain during the training or I'm going to feel it on the big day. I'd rather feel it by myself during the training instead of, on the big day, so I can actually enjoy the marathon itself. And I think that is, probably applies to a lot of other things outside of sport too.
And you mentioned that your boyfriend is a big inspiration for you. But you also mentioned before that your dad had a company. So my question is, your dad had his own company while you were growing up, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was his company, if you can share with us, and what did you learn from him?
Really cute question. He ran an insurance brokerage. He was a CEO. He had a partner and with about 200 people in the business. So pretty big thing to do. Pretty high stress environment as well. Mm-hmm. And I think that the most important thing he taught me, probably two things. The first thing is just being like an incredible, adorable dad that, like, you know, thinks that his kids can do anything and just encourage me. Like, for example, with the clothes hiring business, he was always super happy to be involved, even though like 16-year-old Lara didn't really want him to be. And the second thing actually was something that my dad didn't directly teach me, but it's something that I learnt from observing his life through my child lens, which was that being a CEO of a company of, you know, however many people, but in his case, hundreds, is really stressful. And it has impacts on your health, like, the amount of stress that you have, how much time you can spend with your family. There are costs behind it. There are costs behind, like, quote unquote success. That is also a really important lesson that I learnt as a child from observing him running his business.
Do you think the environment you grew up was a key point for you to not follow the normal career path?
Yeah, definitely. But probably not in the way that maybe people might expect. I think in the way that, sort of going back to what I was saying before, I think the like maybe richest thing that I have in my life are parents who encourage me. And even though they're afraid sometimes when I make certain decisions that are more risky, because then that's normal, they're parents. I'm sure if I, am lucky enough to be a parent one day, that I'll also feel afraid if my daughter, who's living on the other side of the world in a foreign country, says to me, actually, Mum and Dad, I'm going to quit my stable job and start freelancing and running this community on the side. Like, I'm sure I will be very afraid. And I'm sure that my parents were when I told them that. But what makes me so lucky is that instead of them projecting that fear onto me, they, I guess, own their own fears, acknowledge it for what it is. It's a fear. And instead what comes out of that mouth is like, okay, that sounds great. Go for it. How can we help? So I think that in that way, it gives me this stable base and knowing that, like, I can fail and I will be okay. And I think that that's probably the thing in my childhood and with the parents that I grew up in that, allows me to, as you said, take like a non-traditional path that feels a little bit more risky, perhaps.
One of my favorite questions is this one that I'm going to ask you. You once spoke about spiral development. Can you explain to us what is this concept about?
Yes, I'll try and do it succinctly because it's a topic that I'm super passionate about. Psychology and understanding how our psyches work in general is something I'm super passionate about. But spiral development is a theory and it has a lot of like adjacent concepts. But the main theory is that like you imagine you have a spiral, and us as humans, throughout our lifetimes, we will like go through different phases of development, just like a child does. But our consciousness as adults also goes through different phases of development that eventually go up that spiral, right? And we have different needs that need to be fulfilled, different behaviors, different ways of looking at the world, depending on where we are in that spiral. And I think the reason why I'm so passionate about this as a concept is that when you sort of learn frameworks like spiral development that reveals like, oh, right now maybe I'm here because this is sort of the way that I think. This is like, these are the things that are important to me. And you can see what is like the stages underneath you and the stages above you as well. Once you have visibility and awareness that those even exist, I think that it's the first step to understand, how can I, start to move up those different stages of development and of consciousness. The analogy that I find really helpful to think about it is like each one of us, me, you, Inesh, the person on the street below us, we all have like an internal operating system, iOS. It's like, our phones have internal operating systems. And we know that every couple of months, Apple or, whatever type of phone you have sends you a notification saying there's a new iOS available, like you need to update it. And you can use the same analogy for us as humans. Like we update our internal operating systems as we just go through life. But we can also do it intentionally if you're conscious about it through therapy, through self-awareness, through consuming podcasts or reading books, however you choose to grow as a person. There's so many different ways that we can do that.
That's really great advice, really great concept. First time I hear it also. Now I wanted to ask you, what is the one thing you wish someone had told you before you start building anything? Even now the community.
Something actually comes to mind which is linked to our previous conversation just then about spiral development, and also about a conversation that we were having together, Inesh, before we started recording, which is about tensions, internal tensions in our lives that come up. Let's take the example of actually a tension that I feel like I've been experiencing the past month, which is I quit my job in December to build a business that I was really passionate about and felt like was really aligned with like my purpose in this world. And then on the other side of the tension was, okay, but I still need to pay my rent at the end of each month. And I have like material constraints around me that I also need to balance. And these two things like felt like they were in tension with each other. And I was sort of like, I want both, I don't want to feel like I just have to pick one side. But often we do pick one of those sides because that's what feels most comfortable. And it feels really uncomfortable to balance this tension. And we're often like not taught to do it, how to do it. So I think this is something that, I wish someone told me before I started building something, that you're going to feel these tensions all the time. And the solution is never just to pick one side, but it's about how can I better balance this tension. The tension's always going to exist, but maybe right now I'm like here on the sliding scale, and to feel more comfortable, I need to bring it here on the sliding scale. What action can I take to change that? Knowing that, okay, eventually I'm going to spend a couple of months here, and then I'm probably going to feel the tension again, and I'm going to need to rebalance it somewhere else. Like it's dynamic. That, that managing tensions is like, a very consistent part of building businesses and building a life as well. And the more familiar that we can be with the fact that they exist and how to balance them better, I think the more enjoyable building is.
And how do you know the difference between giving up too early and walking away at the right time?
If I think about my life and my decisions of like, do I go or do I stay? I've always known deep down what I needed, but I've had fears that all those voices that go, oh, but what if this happens? What if this happens? So I think if the more that we can just be honest with ourselves, of like, okay, I know that I want to do this choice, but I'm scared because of X, Y, Z reasons, because what will my parents say, or, what will my peers say, all these questions, then you can move forward and you can understand what actions you need to take to move forward once you're actually honest with yourself about what you're experiencing. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, I think it can help someone listening to it. And other question that can also help someone struggling right now, it's how does our body give us signals for what we should be doing? You mentioned this before, that you can feel you're in the right direction or not, right?
Yeah, our body gives us so many signs, so many signs. And I think for me anyway, in order to listen to the signs that my body or my intuition is giving me, which I think is not actually coming from me, but it's like coming from something above and it's just being sent through me. And I can talk about why that differentiation I think is important later if you want, but I need to have space. I need to be in quiet, and that needs to be engineered. You can't wait, for me anyway. I can't just wait for space to happen, because the world that we live in, we have so much, obviously, so much external stimulus, and our environment is designed to not have quiet and not have space and always be busy. And so, yeah, for me, listening to the signs from my body come down to seeking quiet and seeking space, and knowing that will actually probably feel really uncomfortable to not be on my phone for a whole day, but that's not a reason to avoid it, because on the other side of that discomfort is, what you're seeking.
You are going to motivate a lot of people too, right?
I hope so.
And let's speak about moving abroad alone. So you moved to Paris at 21. You told me that those 6 months in Paris with no job, no routine, and no close friends, just by yourself, were some of the most productive times of your life. Can you explain to us why?
Yeah. So I think that when I moved to Paris alone at 21, I was going through a lot of identity shedding. We hear this cliche phrase of oh, you find yourself when you move abroad. But honestly, it's what I experienced. Maybe it's a cliche for a reason. But I guess going back to what we were talking about before, I just had space. I had 6 months where I was still technically studying at my university in Australia, but I had a really low workload. So I had so much free time, and that's a form of space. And so I was in a completely, new country, new environment, new friends, new people around me, and no constraints on what to do with that. It was up to me to choose to do what I did with all that time I had. And I think the reason why it was so productive is purely, because of that space. That space allowed me to ask myself really important questions about the type of life that I wanted to live, the type of people that I wanted to surround myself with, because I was choosing from scratch, who are my friends going to be now, instead of, before the age of 21, you have your friends from your school, then you have your friends from your university. It's all a lot more influenced by our environment, even though, of course, we still choose. I think that when you start from what felt like a literal blank slate, and plus the element of having time, I think that, those 6 months allowed me to gain actually years and years of maybe choices that I would have kept making on autopilot, like the type of people I surrounded myself with, or just the way that I chose to live my life.
Exactly. And the last question that I have for you is, what is the biggest lesson you have learned when moving alone?
There are so many, it's really difficult to narrow it down to one. But I think that the most important one, and the one that comes to mind, also because we were talking about it before, is to learn how to be there for yourself. I think that, again, this comes into my view of the world as someone who's very passionate about psychology, but I think that all of us go through the process, no matter what type of childhood that you had, no matter how great or not great it was. We all go through the process of learning how to reparent yourself once you become an adult. And honestly, moving abroad alone, I really was forced to go through that. We were talking about before the fact that with the time zone change between Australia and Europe, when I was living in Paris, I was living alone for a part of it, like the first part. And every time I would come across something challenging, whether that was like, I remember something I found challenging at the start was even just opening a French bank account. Because I remember I went to the bank, I mustered up so much courage because I hate admin things to go to the bank, speak French on a topic that I'd never like really learned how to speak French on and wasn't super confident. Anyway, that was a challenge. And Australia's asleep when I went through that. I can't just call my mum or dad or my best friend straight away and be like, what do I do? I had to figure it out for myself. And that's a silly example, but there were many other things that happened where I had to learn how to self-soothe and learn how to be my own best friend, be my own parent. I think it was really important for me because it just gave me confidence through proof, which I think is something else that I learned of like, okay, how do we get more confident? It's literally by just giving yourself proof that like I can do hard things, I can get through challenging moments, I can fail, but I'm always going to be there for myself at the end of it, and that's enough.
Exactly. Thank you, Lara. I hope this interview helps someone out there that is struggling also in building a community, a business, or just moving abroad alone.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ines.